we've known for 6 weeks.
Now, breaking news this afternoon, the US bombers are now set to land at British air bases after all, any day now, to join attacks on Iran. But our British Navy warship, HMS Dragon, meanwhile, will not reach our Cyprus military base for at least another 2 weeks. Now, so much for Rule Britannia. This is more like Fool Britannia, because the Portsmouth-based Type 45 won't now set sail until next week. And then it will take at least another week for it to arrive on station. And this comes after the humiliation that the French, and even the Greek military, the military minnow of Greece, sent their support to Cyprus to help us before we even got there and showed up. Our GB News' South of England reporter Isabel Fekulag is in Portsmouth there, off the coast. HMS Dragon is now moored behind that foggy bank. But Isabel Fekulag, it's an astonishing state of affairs. The former head of the Royal Navy, Admiral Lord West, said Lord Nelson must be spinning in his grave.
Yeah, the HMS Dragon is slowly emerging from the fog behind me. It's been completely covered for the last hour or so, not in sight at all. And it certainly won't be in sight in Cyprus anytime soon either. It won't be leaving here in Portsmouth until early next week. At that point, it will take another 5 to 7 days to get to Cyprus, where it will meet the French and Greek vessels already there. But it's currently here in Portsmouth Harbour, in the upper harbour ammunition facility. Throughout the day, it's been loading up with missiles and weaponry and other ammunitions too, using the crane to load up those missiles. It's also been getting fueled up, and there's been crew on board working on the ship, some scaffolding on board too. It's currently in a maintenance period. It's been in a maintenance period. It's been here since December. It was getting ready to go for operations in the high north. Of course, now it's heading to the Mediterranean. When it's heading there exactly, we don't know, but it might be a couple of weeks before it arrives in Cyprus.
Just incredible. It really, really is an incredible state of affairs. Isabel Fekulag, thank you very much there. We can see HMS Dragon behind you. It's a magnificent craft, but it should not be in Portsmouth. It should be in the Med, doing its job to shield Cyprus. Thank you very much for joining us, Isabel. Let's get back to Westminster for some political reaction. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by the Reform MP and the Chief Whip, and that is Lee Anderson, as well as GB News' Chief Political Correspondent, Catherine Forster, and GB News' Senior Political Commentator, Nigel Nelson. Welcome to you all. Lee Anderson, let's start with you. I watch you watching that footage there. It just seems to me utterly incredible that HMS Dragon is still off the shore of Portsmouth. It's been described as the Royal Navy's biggest humiliation, made as a global laughingstock.
Well, it is a humiliation, Martin, and actually this is probably the only boat that Starmer has stopped crossing the channel. And let's be honest, we've known about this now for, Donald Trump were making noises 6 or 7 weeks ago about what he was going to do. He was telling the people of Iran to uprise. He was going to send his fleet over, which he has done. Everybody in the world's been tracking it on the internet. You can track it on your phone. And guess what? We've got this boat, this ship stuck in Portsmouth Harbour. And actually, when you think about it, when you go back to 1982, we got to the Falkland Islands quicker with a bigger force than this ship's getting to Cyprus. It's incredibly stupid of us. It shows weak leadership from Starmer. He's not a leader, he's a lawyer, and we are an international laughingstock.
It's worth pointing out as well, Lee Anderson, of course, that this is the consequence of decades of the lack of investment in our military. Previous Conservative government, of course, which you were a part of for a while, they've all taken their eye off the prize. They've all taken their eye off the ball, and here we are now, just floundering, pointless, sidelined.
We always used to harp on, Martin, about having the best military in the world. And I still think we've got the best soldiers and sailors and airmen. I think the personnel is still brilliant. But you're quite right in what you said. It's been a lack of investment over successive governments. So we always seem to act in this country far too late. It's far too little, too late. We're always playing catch up with our military. I think this now should be a wake-up call for the future to start spending proper amounts of money, 3% of GDP on our armed forces. It should be nothing less.
OK, stick with us, Lee. I want to get your take on Donald Trump's comments comparing Keir Starmer, to to Winston Churchill. But before that, let's get to you, Catherine Forster, for some political reaction. You were at PMQs today. I just thought, once again, it was just another nothing burger. Waste of time. A political class sort of fighting over, fripperies at the time where we are an international laughing stock. But what are Labour saying? Is there any excuse, any justification being put out for how HMS Dragon can be off the coast of Portsmouth when it should be off the coast of Cyprus?
Well, we were interrogating the Prime Minister's official spokesman after Prime Minister's questions, as you would expect. They rejected the assertion that they've been basically caught napping, and they were saying, look, we've been speaking closely to the United States. We have been putting resources into that area. Since the beginning of the year, they said jets, radar, they're talking about what the F-35 planes have been doing. They said that they've been bolstering our wider defensive capability, and they're saying we have extensive military capabilities in the region, moving more there as we speak. But look, I think it is a sign of the times, isn't it? Clearly, we were the second biggest NATO spender after the United States for a very long time. But now other European countries, many of them have really, really woken up. Germany in particular has now overtaken us. And the Prime Minister, is standing there and he's saying, we're going to have to spend more and faster. As I said at Munich, well, I was also at Munich where he said the same, and they came back, but they have not moved on their timetable of when they're going to get to 3%, let alone 3.5%, 5%. They've promised, along with defence-adjacent spending, by 2035. That was a pledge that the Prime Minister, other NATO allies, made back in The Hague at the NATO summit. Last summer, I was there as well. But for all the talk, all the rhetoric, the reality does not match it. And I think this is a reflection that we see today.
Lee Anderson, we heard yesterday at the spring statement, the welfare spend will reach £407 billion per year by the end of this government. That's an incredible increase. That's 5 times the entire defence budget.
It's unbelievable, Martin. We're paying people to stay at home. We're spending, £1 billion a month on universal credit for people that weren't even born here. We've got an epidemic of mental illness. We've got an epidemic of people on PIP payments. And meanwhile, like you say, the amount of money we spend on our defence is minuscule in comparison to what we spend on our welfare budget. Priorities are all wrong in this country. We look pathetic. We look cowardly. And we used to have the strongest navy in the world. We were feared and respected all over this globe. Look at the things we've done in the past. It's been incredible. We built a British empire with our navy, and now we've got a boat stuck in Portsmouth dock. We can't even get it to Cyprus, and we've got France and Greece bailing us out. It's absolutely pathetic.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
nearly half the benefits budget is going on pensions and pension benefits. So, are you suggesting that we actually drop pension amounts down or to pay for defence? Defence will cost us, if we're going to get to 2.6% by 2027, which is the plan, you're talking about £25 billion a year. So that money has got to come from somewhere.
I'm not talking about reducing pensioners' money, Nigel, people like yourself and Chopper. That's never going to happen. But what we can do is we've got 6 or 7 million people in this country who are economically inactive. Let's get them back to work. Let's get them getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, working a shift, doing the hours, and paying some taxes, paying back into the coffers. We've got far too many people in this country swinging the lead. We're spending loads of money on people that weren't even born here on universal credit. Goodness knows what the PIP payment is for people that weren't even born in this country. We can't even get those figures. It runs into billions of pounds a year. Stop that money and spend it on our armed forces. It's dead simple, Nigel.
But the first thing you've got to do there is to have a review to see actually who deserves the money and who doesn't, which is what Sir Stephen Timms is doing at the moment, carrying out a review on disability on the basis that should save some money come the end of it. But first of all, let's find out who actually needs the money.
They've already tried to reduce the benefit bill in the budget last year. And what happened? The Labour backbenchers rebelled and the U-turn once again. They daren't do it, they're frit.
Well,
it went up a lot when you were Conservatives. Stop winking at me.
It did, yeah, and the Conservatives were just as bad. We've got this epidemic, Catherine, of people being on PIP when they shouldn't be on PIP. The genuine ones that I see in my surgery that should be on PIP, they really struggle to get a claim in. We've got people coming from this country who's never worked a day in their life, probably in their own country. They come in here and they live in a life of Riley on benefits. People in this country have had enough of subsidising people from other countries and subsidising people that quite clearly have got no intentions of going to work.
Lee Anderson, let's get your opinion on the comments from Donald Trump, withering comments towards Keir Starmer, saying he's clearly no Winston Churchill, talking how disappointed he is in this entire incident. I wonder what your opinion is of this incident. I mean, on the one hand, it's a foreign power intervening in the way that people like you might complain when Barack Obama weighed in about Brexit. But what is your opinion about the special relationship and Keir Starmer's position in that?
Well, it's in tatters at the moment, isn't it? I think Keir Starmer is, I think the only word you can describe him as at the moment is a coward on the international stage. You know, he's made a living of defending wrong-uns and bad people all his life. He never puts the British people at the top of his list. He never puts us first. He's an embarrassment, Martin. I'm embarrassed to walk into that place on a Wednesday afternoon to watch him at PMQs. It's shameful, and the sooner he's gone, the better. The only problem we've got is when he eventually does go, and I think it'll be at the end of this year, maybe just in conference season, is who do we replace him with?
And what's your take on this situation? Catherine Force, on the one hand, Donald Trump says anything about anyone, and that's the unpredictable nature of him. But does he have a point? Are they concerned about all this in Whitehall, in Westminster? Are they concerned about Keir Starmer's reputation internationally? Because at the moment, he seems to be more concerned about upsetting the Ayatollah.
Well, look, they put an enormous amount of effort in, didn't they, into getting on good terms with Donald Trump. They rolled out the King, the state visits. They fell over themselves, and it worked very well until it didn't. But it seems that the Prime Minister, I mean, he stood up to Trump on Greenland. I mean, the whole of Europe did that. But he believes that this is an illegal war, and he is a former human rights lawyer. Kemi Badenoch's spokesman at lunchtime said that the government's contorting itself, around Lord Hermer's interpretation of international law. And I think that's a lot of it, is that he is first and foremost a lawyer. He believes that the war is illegal, and so he is saying no. I don't think they are that concerned, in that there is plenty of people in this country who do not like Donald Trump, don't like the optics of a British Prime Minister being bossed around and told what to do by another leader. And so they think with some people this will probably benefit them.
Lee Anderson, when you think back to that "we will fight them on the beaches" speech, you got Winston Churchill there. What do you think Sir Keir Starmer would say? We will use international treaties against them on the beaches?
Listen, Martin, nobody lies awake in my constituency if actually worrying about international law. And if that man, who we see on the screen now, Sir Winston Churchill, had got the law book out, we'd all be speaking German now.
Isn't that the point? That we hear a lot about Lord Hermer. He was in the gallery the other day when Keir Starmer was resolutely pointing out for about the 55th time, we weren't on the offensive against Iran at all. Like, who's he trying to pander to here?
Well, I mean, just on Winston Churchill, bear in mind, he was instrumental in getting the European Convention of Human Rights.
I wonder
well, you know that to be true. You know that to be true.
They were different times, Nigel. We've just come out of the Second World War.
Exactly, but it was somebody who actually cared about international law post the Second World War. When it comes down to President Trump's comments, it isn't very patriotic to side with a foreign leader who slags off our country. I mean, certainly President Trump was being totally insulting last night. No respectable foreign leader would do that. Only President Trump does. And as far as the special relationship goes, I mean, there's a question about whether it really exists at all. That certainly, when I was a foreign correspondent based in America, we talked about the special relationship, the Americans didn't. And if the Americans ever did, it was just to make us feel better.
In their hour of need, Nigel, when the Americans needed our help, we refused it. And again, Sir Keir Starmer's U-turned on another major issue, eventually been dragged kicking and screaming to allow the Americans to use our air bases. It's shameful, it's disgusting. And they've known for weeks what's going to be happening in Iran. Trump's warned everybody in the world what's going to happen. And at some stage, Keir Starmer must have made a decision whether or not to help these people, whether or not to help the Americans, and he's turned his back on them. It's shameful.
But then he's got the lesson of Iraq behind him when there are so many similarities with the war that's being fought in Iran.
Well, this isn't
what's similarities?
It is not different. In Iran, you had a leader who was murdering his own people, the same thing as in Iraq.
Yeah, but they invaded Kuwait.
I'm talking about the second war. That was the first war under John Major, which was only to liberate Kuwait, not to actually invade Iraq. That the first President Bush stopped at the Iraqi border once Kuwait was liberated.
What do you think Keir Starmer would have done about Saddam Hussein? Sent him from Quality Street?
Well, I mean, the whole...
They're his favourite tweets. That's the point. Look, tyrants don't care about international law.
No,
tyrants don't care about the rules that human rights lawyers play by. The Ayatollah never cared. For 47 years, none of them ever cared. They massacred their own people. We're stymied by rules that the opposition doesn't play by.
But the whole point is you've got to actually plan for what comes afterwards. Yeah, the world is better off without Saddam Hussein. The world is better off without the Ayatollah. It's what happens next. And what happened next in Iraq was that Islamic State moved into the power vacuum we created, and there were more problems after that.
And that's what the Prime Minister's saying, because he said people are very worried about the potential for escalation. We don't know what the American plan is. They say they don't want to put boots on the ground. How do you change a regime? They've already putting the son in charge. We don't know what follows this. We don't know how bad it's going to get, and we don't know how much it's going to cost us all in our pockets either.
OK, great. We're going to leave it there. Nigel Nelson, Catherine Forster, Lee Anderson, thank you very, very much indeed. A spirited debate.